Okay, we're up to Nedarim Mem Zayin Amid Beis. We're up to the Mishnah, and we're going to B'ez Hashem finish the parak today. Hareini alacha cherim. Hareini, behold, Hareini, it's upon me, alacha cherim. Then Hamuda Asar, the one who the nether was upon is Asar. Hareini alacha, I am on you cherim. So Hamuda, the one that he was directing the nether to is Asar. Hare at alai cherim, he says, Hare at alai, you upon me cherim. Then Hanoider Asa, the one who made the nether is Asa. Okay. Hareni Olecha Viat alai. Then Shnei Masurim, right. So that's, it's good. Again, it seems to be some, by this time it's Masechta. We know this already, that there's two ways for Hanoider to become Asa. Either a person can answer himself, or he can answer another person on himself. And that's supposed to illustrate it in these two cases. However, if they're both Asa Bahano, Shnei Mutarim, if he said the Lashon Hareni Olecha V'at alai, and they're both Asa Bahano, Ushnei Mutarim B'Dava Shel Oile Bavel. When it comes to the people of Oile Bavel, we'll see what they mean in a second. They would be permitted, both of them. In other words, it wouldn't be considered having another one from the other. The Surim B'Dava Shel Oisa Ir, but they would be usher in something that is communal. What's the problem? The communal belongs to them. In other words, you're part of a city, so you have a shutfis in that piece of the city. And since you both can't have enough from each other, you would not be able to have enough from the communal object. Versus Oile Bavel, where is all of Klal Yisrael, seems to be that doesn't seem to be an issue. So says the Gemara Vaita. What's an example of Oile Bavel that's permitted? Could go on Harabayas. Example, Harabayas, you're permitted on Harabayas. The Azaros in the Beis Hamikdash, you'll be permitted in the Azaros. The Habor Shebem Derech of Pasi Barois fame. Remember Pasi Barois with the Yumdim around. We had to deal with it. So we had in the bar to the outside, which is Rabbi, and you put the Yumdim around that. So that is, they dug those wells. So the people, all those would be considered Ali Bavel, and all of those would be permitted. All of those would be permitted. Why is that? Because it's not pshat that you own it. These are mufker la'ol. Guys, it's not. In other words, when it comes to the city, right? The people of the city, they have a piece of the action in the city. When it comes to the objects, the Beis Hamikdash, when it comes to the Oile Bavel, in other words, it's not shall we all own it, but it's mufka all. So you're not having enough from anyone. It's mufka for everyone to use. And that's why Oile Bavel would be permitted. Dezu Dovishal Oisai Ir, what would be something that's considered communal that is Asr? Kigoin Harachava, the streets, the Hamerchatz, Ubeis HaKnesses, the Beit House, the Beis Knesses, the Shul, the Hateva, the Arin Kodesh, Vasvarim. Okay. So now what? So what do you do then, guys? The person making the Nedarim, what do you do in that case? So here's the takana. The Hakois of Chelkai Linasi, you would go ahead and write your chelik to the nasi. In other words, whatever I own in that shul should be given to the nasi. Thus, you would not, the other person would not be having enough from you. So this would be a means of a workaround to ensure that you'll be able to go to shul on Shabbos. Whether you write it to a nasi, basic kaisav lehedyur, you write it to a regular person, not the nasi, right? It will not be a difference. Either way, you have the same workaround as long as what is your fellow mudhano is not involved, you're good. Uma ben kaisav nasi, le kaisav lehedyur, she kaisav nasi ain't sarich l'sakos, but kaisav nasi there's no kinyan required. Lahedyet sarach l'zakos, right? And for a hedyet, you would have to go ahead and make a kinyan. In order for the other person to have it, you'd have to make a kinyan. Whether it's the nasi or the hedyet, you would need what a kinyan. So what's the difference between the nasi and the hedyet according to the chachamim? There is no difference. Like nasi that normally who would you give it to? You give it to some, a pertinent figure of importance such as the nasi. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ein anshe galot tzrichen lichtav." They don't have to write anything to the nasi. Shekvar kosu avayseyen al yedehem. Their fathers already had written it. It seems the people in Yehuda were not dranim. There were people who made Nedarim. They would get angry. They would make a neder. By this time in the Masechta, Nedarim are not such a good thing to do, right? And they would make Nedarim. So to go ahead, and avoid the issue of being muda enough from each other, not being able to have enough from communal property, there was like written already over to the nasi. Okay, let's see the Rans over here. The Ran on the left side. And the city that they live in, they will be usher. A person in another city does not have a chelik in it, as opposed to Oile Bavel, which everyone has a chelik in, which we're mufkar. Okay, it's a lacha, you can sell it. Therefore, should fit in the communal area and therefore be awesome onto the other. What's the teva? Sefer Torah. It's not the Aron Kodesh as I said initially. It's what they put the Sefer Torah on. Likrois vasvarim shekarim behem. That is the Sefer Torah itself. So what would they do? Vakoisim chelka linasi, says the Ran. Here's what exactly what the Mishnah is saying. Mata kanta. What's the takana? If you mudana, how do you go ahead and avoid having a nod that you need to go to shul, you need to get laning, you need, right? How do you go ahead and work around that? So says the Gemara, that's what the Mishnah is coming to tell you. Mata kanton. That's the words that's missing. What's the takana? Yichtvu chelkan lenasi. Let them write the chelik to the nasi, right? Let them write the chelik to the nasi. The bahachi shari. And this way it will be muta. Like we said, give it to another person. Right? We said, guys, if you're in the desert, you're on the way, you have 3 people, what do? Give it to another person's matana, and that will be your workaround. Here you're giving what? The nasi, the matana, and therefore what? You're giving, that's the way it works now. What's the difference between the headgear and the nasi? We said the nasi, you don't need a kinyan. As soon as you write the shtar matana kana, even though a person wasn't zeicha for the nasi, mishum the yafa koyach nasi. It's so powerful the koyach nasi. Once you write the shtar matana, he doesn't have to make a kinyan, whereas opposed to a head, he has to make a kinyan. And says the chachamim, echad zed, you need to make a kinyan. Both of them said you have to make a kinyan. So what's the difference between a nasi and a head? That would be the norm. She'ein adam soymich lahakles la'adam acher. A person is not somich to go ahead and be marked to another individual. The mistafe, he's scared. Shema yasu alav, maybe you'll answer on him. Lefikach nago lichtayv linasi. It would be nice to write to the nasi. Shein darkei lesa hanasei al habriyos. In other words, why wouldn't you write it to another individual? Because he may make you mudda b'hana. Mashen kein what by the nasi, then you don't have to worry. So that would be the pshat. Okay. Says the Gemara. Now the Gemara assumes we know something already, guys. It says if you read the Mishnah straight, what does it say? It says, Rabbi Yehuda, you read the Gemara. It says what's asa the harabayis the azaris is muta, and what's asa the shuls and the svarim, and then it says it's mashma that it's asa. So you read it, it just flows. That's also part of the issa. We know the answer already. You saw the Ran, but the Gemara foreshadowed us the Gemara. The Gemara wants a my mitzvah. Why is it asa if you write it to the nasi? Some of Shesh's hachik tani umata kanton. Right, that's what the Ran added those words. What's the takon if people are mudana? Yichtru chelkan lenasi. Let them write the chelik to the nasi. Okay, let's skip. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer ein anshe golol. The men of golol tzrichen lezakos shekvar kosu avasem al yedehem. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Aimer anshe golol kantorim hayu. The men of golol, they were what kantorim. They were very argumentative. I think I hope I didn't say Yehuda earlier. Rabbi Yehuda says they're not the men of Yehuda, but the men of Golol, the Galilee, the north. They were argumentative people. They were making, and therefore they're making Dorim Hanazem Izeh. Amdu Avaseyim because of Chalekim Lenasi. So what do they do in order to avoid the issue in communal property such as a shul and whatnot? They would go ahead. They wrote it over to the Nasi. That's the first Mishnah. Second Mishnah. Hamuda Hanomech Averoi. Now we had this earlier, right? You make enough in your favor, you don't know what to eat. So we had the Gemara, you give it to the Chenvani, right? We had different scenarios. So noisin le'echa the shum matana, you give it to another person as a matana, and the other person might is muta in it. Okay, now l'chayri, this is extraneous because we already know this. So the Ran brings it in that it's extraneous, and the Ran says the only reason we're bringing this in is because of the following Maisa. Maisa be'echad bebeis charayin, and we had this earlier, guys. We had this earlier. right? There was a Maisa with a person who gave a present in Beis Charo, the name of a place. The father was Muda Himenu. The son and the father had a falling out, and the son said the father can't have enough from him, guys. The father can't have enough from him. And now the son was marrying off his son, and he wanted his grandson to come to the wedding. We spoke this out. The Omar l'chaveiroi chatza v'suda nesunim, the chatza the suda nesunim, right? L'cha b'matana, and let's change the gersa. Ve'ena lefanecha ela kadei sheyavoy abba v'yachal imana b'suda, and it's only given over to you that my father should give it. So this is, and he verbalized it, guys. He verbalized it. This is a matana, right? What's his matana? That I want to ensure that my father should be able to come to the chasana. I want him to dance. I want him to eat. I want him to be able to walk on the land, which he's not permitted to, because the vita is asar. I want him to inena from the suda, which is there. So therefore, I'm giving it to you almanas. Well, that doesn't say almanas. It should be in front of you that what? That my father should come and eat. So Amar, im shaliheim, if they're mine, harihim muktashim shemayim. What does the guy do? It's my turn up. It's Hegdish. Amar, the guy told him, the sati l'cha es shali shetakdisha m'shemayim. Right? I didn't give it to you that what that you should magdish shemayim. Amar the sati li es shalcha. You gave it to me that your father and you could go ahead and be eat and drink and and pacify each other. And the oven of Nedarim should be in Beroshai, meaning on his right, on my own right. This is, you're making haram. You got a neder over here, and you want to use me as the scapegoat to go ahead and work around your neder. You're not really giving it to me as matana. So Amr Chachamim kol matana she'ena any matana that's not. Any matana that you're unable to be magdish is not considered a matana. Okay, let's see a ran over here. Guys, what's the halacha of matana al-manas lahachzir? You mekadesh isha with a matana al-manas lahachzir. The halacha is she's mekudeshes. So the question is, what's the difference between this, that it's nothing, and matana al-manas lahachzir, that is a matana? Apparently, this is a matana al-manas lahachzir. Here, this is yours, until my father can come, and then I want it back. Okay, so let's see. Let's see the round, guys. The left side. We already mentioned this before. But in this kind, it's only listed over here. No matter that the chiddush. What's the chiddush? That in the end, if you can see the whole reason you made it was a trick, it's asa. That's it. Because so the chiddush is the sefer, because the case of Vada Beis Choron was a matana, but that was a haram, it was a joke. Madir, the one who made the neder, was marrying off his son. And he wanted the mother, the grandfather, to be able to attend the wedding. So what the Mishnah conclude, guys? Any matana she'ena, the b'medayit lashon, kol matana she'ena, shemekdisha ena mekudeshes ena matana. Kloimar, dinihi de masna almash. Almanas matana almanas lahachzir shma matana. Freg Duran, what's the difference between this and matana almanas lahachzir? Af agav the mikdisha ena mukudeshes. Even so, right? If your magdish is not mukudeshes, uchalamina perikesh neichlin, the almanas shetachziriu li hikdishu ena kaddish. The immediate dechazu dekama, something that's seen to me. Shiny hasam, it's different over here. There, the mikomakam l'shaita matanahi. There it is a matana. Av matana zu shel beis chayrein afil l'shaita ena. Over here it's not even a matana. Shlein iskaven lak noisel a klau. He wasn't mechaven at all. Shetikra al shemoi kadesh aviv mutaboy. Pirish matana masa haksi, guys. If it's not mekudesh, it's not because it's not matana, because they need something that you can keep. But it's a good matana. I said earlier it's mekudesh. It's not mekudesh, but it's still a matana. So why over here it's not a matana? Because over here he didn't give it at all. He didn't give it all. It's very meduik, the lashon. It doesn't. The tani call matana she'ena. Any matana that's not she'imik disha ena mukudeshes. Guys, look at the lashon. The last line of the third line down, the second line down. Amar chachamim kol matana she'ena. Any matana that's not. Look at what could have been written. It doesn't say kol matana she'imik disha ena mukudeshes. It doesn't say the word she'ena. It could have guys said the following: kol matana she'imik disha Eina Mekudeshes. It doesn't say that. Kol matana she'eina. Mishum detana hachi kamar. Kol matana she'eina klum kizu. Any matana that's not given over like this one at all. Shehiba Rama, which is a total facade. Shemekdisha Eina Mekudeshes. Eina matana. V'hachi yisiv Yerushalmi Rabbi Yirmi Aboy. Chi eina the moisim matana al manash leikdisha. Enu kinam asnisan matana Rama she'eina shemekdisha Eina Mekudeshes Eina matana. So therefore, the difference with the matana manas hachzer is when you give it a matana and the time the person has a matana, they can return it. Over here, it's not even a matana. Kol matana she'eina. It's nothing. It's nothing. No, again, the Gemara there says that you're giving it's considered a matana. The reason it doesn't work is for a zaitig reason, but it is a good matana when the person has it.
Well, I understand what whole condition is a matana. Oh, it's
Again, no, you're using something that you can get back. So what are you giving if you're going to get it back? Again, the focus is only on the word that it is a matana. That is a matana, right? It is a matana. This is not a matana at all. It's nothing. It's zero. She'ena. It's nothing. That's the difference between the two. Now, Maisa Lister. Now, you just told me, guys, that you told me that the following. You started off the Mishnah and you said the guy doesn't know what to eat. What do? You give it as a matana to another person. The other person can use it. So you bring in a story. What's the story? You're bringing a story where it doesn't work. Usually when the Mishnah brings in a Maisa, it's for the purpose to support its statement. Over here, the Maisa seems to go ahead and contradict what your statement was. Your statement was it's a good matana and the other guy can now have enough from the third party. Over here, the can't have enough from the third party. Furthermore, Maisa Listar? So it's missing words. Here's the way I have to learn. And if at the end it shows about the beginning, asa. That's the key word. And if the end soifai al tchilasai asa. So if the end over here, that the whole reason he gave the matana was for the purpose of. We said Rabbi Yossi. We said Rabbi Yossi. Remember the case of the guy in the rock? Rabbi Yossi asked it. So Rabbi Yossi said that it's obvious if you put it on the rock, it was only that we had two drachim. We had a derech is that it doesn't come to his rishus until his rishus. I mean, the other derech that Rabbi's derech was that what that was similar to the Ma'aser Beis Choron, right? That was the Gufa was the terrace. So he's saying over here, anytime it's clear in the end that the whole reason you did it in the first place, that's not a matana. Well, Ma'aser Nami Beis Choron now the Ma'aser goes ahead and substantiates this guy. Those are the missing words. The words you're missing him. In other words, if you were to go ahead. Remember, guys, we spoke about when you go to the Chenvani, you can't tell the Chenvani, go ahead and give it to the guy. You can just say out loud, this guy doesn't have any food. But you can't go ahead and designate, because if you would, that would be clearly an example of what of Seifai Techila Seifai B'Machiach At Chilasai. That's the case. Okay, good. So what do you have, guys? Let's river. What do we have? Have a case. If a guy's more than enough from his friend, the friend doesn't know what to eat. He, in a way that's indirect, he gives it to somebody else, and that person then can give it to the other person. However, there's a addendum, right? You have to add the following. It has to be clear that the second person who's acquiring it is not acquiring it for the person to give that you also give from. It can't be. The machia seifat chilasa, it's no good. And what's the raya to that? The Ma'aser Beis Choron, where clearly the whole reason he gave it to this individual was to facilitate his father coming to the Suda and to the wedding, right? So the Ma'aser was taka. The Ma'aser taka was supporting the missing statement. It's supporting that statement. Good. Now a little more. Amarava loy shanu ella do amale ve'ein lefanecha. Put the word ve'ina. He says it's not in front of you. Ella kadesh yavai abai. It's not in front of you. Only that Abba should come and eat. Aval amalei sheyu lefanecha sheyavai Abba. It should be in front of you. Then midaitchahu the amalei. So in other words, the difference is saying that it's not in front of you only for daddy to come, or it is in front of you that daddy should come. So he wants the taina. When you say that it is in front of you that daddy should come, then in fact it would be a good matana. Says Rashi. It says Ran. About 5 lines up. It's not in front of you only what the daddy should come. That's when it doesn't work. He's saying with your das, the lav tanoi who is not a tanoi, umatana gemurahi. So guys, this is in front of you, guys. and it's not in front of you, only that daddy can come to its condition. It's yours only if daddy, right? But if you give it outright, this is yours, and daddy can come without a tanai, then it's a good matana. That's the first lashon. Lishnachrina doesn't make a difference. Lishnachrina amila amarava loy tema taima. Don't think the reason is the amar ve'ein lefanechahu the asar because he made a condition. Aval amalei hein lefanecha if he says it's in front of you sheyavei abba v'yochel muta. Elafilu amalei hein lefanav yavi abba it's in front of you the abba shekam v'yochel asar. My taima. Even if the words are not mochiach, the suda is. The fact that there's a suda prepared there, therefore it's mochiach. That's the Ran says. Okay, so now according to the first lashon, if you would say only and it's not make it condition, it doesn't work. But if you would say it should be in front of you, it would work. According to the second lashon, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't work either which way. On the base. He got for it was just an individual. The Havile Bara, he had a son. The Havi Shomit Kipi the Kisna. He stole a bundle of flax. Now, as opposed to today's society, where you're told that no matter what your child does, you're supposed to say, I love you. This father was having none of that. What did he do, this father? He asked this, I know. He said, he went ahead. Okay, and we're learning Lila Nishmas. Just a recorder. Ephraim ben Ezra.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, Ephraim ben Ezra. So he stole it, and the father the father said, "You can have enough from me." Amrulay, they told the father, "The have barbara sumar rabbanon," and if the son of the one you were muda enough from will be a talmid chacham, what would you say? Would you want him not to have enough? So Amalahu, and he told him, Likli Hadain, right? Let him be kaina, the Havi Bar Sumar Rabbanon, the Knaya, and then if he has a son that's a Chacham, in other words, he can have it, but he can't use it. And he has a son that's a Talmud Chacham, then it'll go to him. It's a very funny mitzvah. In other words, you're being mizaka to somebody that you yourself can't use it for somebody else. So the Gemara asks right away. We'll get back to Iran in a second. What exactly is the case? What? No. If you look at, well, okay. So there could be like not the Dav Shalom. Let's see the Shiloh in a second. Let's just see it a little bit more. So what's the din? Anri pumpedisoy kana almanas lahaknois to acquire something almanas to be makna to somebody else. Chol kani almanas lahaknois like kani. Of Nachman Amakani. Okay, so here's the Shiloh, guys. Can I acquire something as an intermediary for something? I can't use it, but can I acquire it for somebody else? Can you do that? Can I acquire something for somebody else? The son that's a ganef can't use it, right? But he's acquiring it for the barbare. Now, the obvious question is, why doesn't he directly give it to get rid of the middleman? Give it directly to the grandson, right? The son that's a ganef, you don't want to give it to, right? So give it to who? The grandson.
He doesn't know how the grandson is going to turn out.
Again, but he knows for sure this is a ganef, right? This is a ganef. You don't know what's going to be with the grandson, but you know that you know clearly you don't want to give it to the ganef, and that's why I know. So he said to him, and what about if his son will be a talmid chacham? Now I don't know if it has to be a talmid chacham. He just doesn't have to be a ganef. In other words, right? It just doesn't have to be a ganef. Why don't you give it directly to the grandson? So take a look at Rashi, the Mefarish over here. Likni Hadain, the Havi Barbaretzim Rabbanon, 4 lines down. Mishundakati le Havi Barbarei Oil. He wasn't in this world yet. The Havi le Mizakel Uber. It's been Mizaka to, I guess the mother must have been pregnant. Mizakel Uber like Kana. So in other words, it's supposed to that she wasn't pregnant yet. It's a bigger Kiddush. She was pregnant. Again, it doesn't make a difference. Again, you're focusing on the main thing is that the point of contention over here is one guy's a bad guy. The kid's not a bad guy. Why do you want to hold it back from Mott? I think, again, I didn't see this anywhere. I'm just learning the following. You're saying Tzubur Rabbanon. What are you saying? As opposed to a Ganef. Everyone wants to give something to his grandchild, except this guy, right? So you're saying, and what happens if the grandson is good? So it does could be a granddaughter also. It doesn't make a difference. But why should the child suffer as a result? So says the Mefarish is speaking of that. Now, look at the Ran now. 2 lines down. Amrulei lehavi barberet sumir abonon my pay a love. Lama lo yikna isa. Why shouldn't he be kaina? The im timer. 1 second. The afal gav the Isranu Aloha, even though he was asabana, havi kaina lahu barberet, he would acquire it. The kasvina lael we learned before. The man the asal nechse abrei, someone who makes his nechasim asur on somebody. Afagav the einu rishoy lahonis mehem. Even if you can't have enough from them, afilu hachi gufa nechasim did they have it? The mikol makom tanan noisin lebanov oil achiv. Pirish, guys, it's possible for the father to have it. He can't have enough from it. So what's the whole Gemara? We had this Gemara before. We said he's kaina, but we said, guys, the guy says, I don't want my son to have enough for me in my lifetime, right? And then he says, what much? He says, "B'chayavu b'maisai." What do we say? Lo yeshena. And we learned the Ram. What does lo yeshena mean? Not that he won't inherit it. The neder is chal, but it's his. What happens when that kid, when he dies? Who would inherit it? Grandson. So it's a whole moot point then. It's a moot point. The Ganef acquires it. Guys, the Ganef acquires it. He just can't use it. And when he dies, it's going to go to who? The grandson. So what's the Gemara's point? That's the Ran. The Ran's asking Gavalda Kasha. What exactly is the case of the Gemara talking about? What are we talking about? If you're talking about getting it to the grandson, you don't need any special lumdis over here. Just because he said it's asabana does not mean doesn't acquire, doesn't inherit to go for the karka. We had this Gemara before. Frag the Ran. Again, you get off it. Just get off that. Get off that. Get off that. Get off that. Get off that.
Even is a righteous person. That's what
Again, the question is, can you be makna something to a person to another person when you can't use it? That's the shot. Good.
This baby, so in Kosovo, she said that you can't because it's illegal, right?
The reason why you can't give it directly to him, the Ran is saying directly, it's going through him. You don't have to do anything.
But there's no grandson. There's no chazaka that he's going to be a kayama.
Again, look at the lumdus over here. Forget you're getting caught up in pitchifkis, guys.
Okay.
The sugya is the following: can a person acquire something for somebody else if he can't use it? That's the sugya. That's the sugya. So the heichatimsa of the case was this guy had a son that was a ganef. They said, "Listen, now what happens if his son is a fine fellow, right?" So she says, "You know what? He'll acquire it for the other guy." Good. That's what he said. Says Pumpatisi, you can't do it. Says of Nachman, you could do it. Good. Says the Ran, I don't understand. Why do you have to do anything? He's going to get it in Mimela. Why is he going to get it? Because we had a sugya before, guys. A guy is mudana. He says, my field is us to my son. My house is us to my son. He said, if he dies, it's muta. However, he says, my side, then what? Lawyer Shannon. What did the Ran say? Not that he doesn't inherit it. He can't use it, but he inherits it. So if he inherits it, who's going to get it? The grandson. You understand? The grandson's going to get it. So let's see the Gemara. Let's see the Ran now. So the Ran's going to say it's mamish the case. Guys, the whole case of the Hekatimsa. Even though he doesn't have a shus to have a no, I feel hachi gufan nechasim. Did they have it? The gufan nechasim belong to him. The mikol makom tanan noisen lebanov oila achiv. The kivon shekain barbarei havi yaris lahu. His grandson's going to inherit it. Ihavi tzumra rabbanon. Oyama oretz. Guys, you hear? Guys, you hear? What does the Ram say? He's going to inherit. Whether he's a tzumra rabbanon or oretz, he's going to inherit it, right? Umechayim nami iboy lemisnayu lebrei. If he wants to give it to his son, matziyavit kitanan noisen lebanav oleachiv ukeprishus leel. Guys, if he wanted to give it, could he give it to his kid? Of course he could. You don't have to wait till he dies. Good. Do you have the kasha? You guys, you have the kasha? Okay, guys, look at me. Look at me. Yehuda, let's go. Look at me. Eye contact. The Gemara seems to have a problem. This guy is not a good guy. His father found a reason to say you can't have enough from me. They said again that you can't have enough. What about his grandson? What about his son? Why should his son be in shul? So he said, you know what? So he should be kind enough for his son. Good. That's what he said. And then we get into Shaila. Can a person acquire something to give to somebody else? Good. That's the Shaila. Fred Duran, what do you need? What do you mean? What's the problem? he goes ahead, he acquires it. Why? Because he's Yarish's father. I can't have Anah. One is Masech Nedarim, and one is the Din of Choshen Mishpat. The Yaridei and Nedarim Din is problematic. The Choshen Mishpat Yerusha Din is not problematic. I separated Shulchan Aruchs for you, right? So now says the Ran, I don't understand the starting point of this Gemara, because we said even though a father is muda hana from a son that a son can have hana from his father, nonetheless he inherits him. And then if he inherits him, so therefore it will go to his grandson naturally. And the grandson will not even have to wait for the death because the father can give it to his matana. That's the Ran's question. Yesh Shlomo says the Ran. Here's what you have to talk about. The hach uvda hachi havi. This is mamish the case that it was. Listen what happened over here. Dalu gavra havile trei bonim. He had two sons. Chad demaile, one was a good guy. The idach the havi shomet keeping the kiss, and the other guy was a ganef, a linen ganef. The kiru boy the havi boy lemisvinul in chasei lahu demaile, and he recognized that what that he have to give the nechasim to who? All to the good son. Umishamachi amule said ihavi babared sumer rabbanon lama lo yiskev nechasim. In other words, if you're going to give everything to the good son, then the other son's not going to inherit anything. In the kasha, there was only one son. So Memela, if there's only one son, of course it's going to go to what? To the grandson. But now you're telling me there's two sons, and he wants to give everything to the good son, so he's going to get nothing. So he said to him, if you don't give anything to the bad son, what about if he has a son who's a Talmid Chacham? That's the Ran is learning what happened in the case, like Divin Nevias, or else it makes no sense, guys. They're very powerful. You need the Ran to explain anything over here. So what does he say? There's two sons, and he wanted to give everything to the good son. They said, if you give everything to the good son, then what's going to happen? Vahadale, and he said to him, Shapikar Misa. You know what? You're saying good. You're right. If the Ganef has a good son, I'd want him to have it. So Likli Hadain, Palga, let the bad son at least acquire half. Bihavi braid Simran Rabbanon, and if he has a son that's a Talmid Chacham, Lekanya Breila Ulu Palga. Mashma over here, Takat Stavka Talmid Chacham. Because why? Because he's not interested in giving away from the other son. The Eloi Lahavi Kuloi Lahachbre the Maila. And if it's not a Talmid Chacham, then the whole thing should be to the good son. Okay, so we just mamish changed. I don't know how you can move it at this time. Okay, guys, let's go. What's the case now? The guy there was a case. The guy stole. He had a brother. The father was mudahana. They told the father, but what happens if this bad guy has a son that's Talmid Chacham? Oh, you're right. If this son Talmid Chacham, I'm going to give him half. The bad guy half. On what condition? That he has a son that's Talmid Chacham. If he doesn't have a son that's Talmid Chacham, then that half is going to revert to the good son, and that's the shayla. Very geschmack. You're back in the Gemara now. So therefore, he said, you know what? So Pumbedisa said, you know what? Koin al manas lahaknes doesn't work. Says Rav Nachman, no, it does work. Why? Rav Nachman will say two reasons. Rav Nachman koni the high sudra koni al manas lahaknes. Guys, you got married, right? But to you, what is a king in Suda? It's picking up a dirty yarmulke. Yeah. Something like no one uses handkerchiefs anymore, right? Yeah, right. They used to yarmulke. What are you doing? You're using to make a kinyan for something else. So every kinyan Suda is your koina al manas lahaknes, right? You makabel kinyan for the tanoim, what's written in the tanoim. Makabel kinyan for what's written in the ksuba. Makabel kinyan, we know we're going to learn Masech the Kedushim. We're going to see kinyan. You can be makna karka with a kinyan suda. I mean, it's unbelievable what you can do. Kesef not, but you could do it right. Chalipin, good. So says of Nachman, why is this different than that? Over there, you're makna, you're koina the suda. I'm an aslahaknais. So therefore, it works as well. That's what Nachman's raya, the kinyan suda. So now the Gemara is going to slug up Rav Nachman and ask him on two places. Rav Nachman Makoni, the high sutra koni amanas lachnas. The suda, literally a handkerchief or some type of turban, is koin amanas lachnas. Amar Ravashi uman leimalon the sudra itafis le mafis. First of all, guys, in our shaila, can the ganif acquire anything? No. What's the whole shaila, guys?
You give it over to his son.
In other words, can you be kind of something, but not for yourself? At your house, could you have kept dirty yarmulke? If you would have, let's say the guy gives you a pen, you go like that. Could you have kept the pen? Why not? Why not? So it's not similar. Because over there, Yitaka could keep it. You could use it, as opposed to the Gan if he's not able to use it. So said to Rav Nachman, it's not similar to Kinyan Sudar. By Kinyan Sudar, the Koinoi can use it. So therefore, that's one reason. That's one dissimilarity.
He
But
can keep it, he can keep it, he just can't use it.
No, he could use it by Kinyan Sudar.
No, I'm saying, but here he can keep it.
No, it's not. It's keeping again. We want the acquire and use it, so it's not similar. Secondly, again, can you be kind? No, he's not acquiring it. He's not acquiring it. Again, Avi, you're wrong. He's not acquiring it. That palga wouldn't work. If according to the according to Pumpid they couldn't be. He would be kind of. By here, you would be kind of suit. Over there, you wouldn't be kind of. The Shiloh was when there was one person. Yeah, no, you won't be. Now, the oid sudra koni almanas lahaknois, the koni min hashta. A sudra you're acquiring almanas to acquire something else. However, that's working right now. When will this kinyan that you're making now work? Right? At that time already, in other words, by this kinyan sudar, it works simultaneously. The kinyan, you give back the sudar and it works. Over here, the kinyan is going to be much later. Only if what? If you have a son that's a Talmud Chacham. Look at the first really wide line of the Ran, guys. V'hashta shaita hada sudri l'mari climb kol tzloi oisa hakna. The kinyan's already gone. Bein shiknoa b'kinyan, bein shiknoa b'chazaka. Doesn't make a difference. Whatever kinyan you use, it's gone because it transpires so much later. Guys, by your chasana, right away with the sudar, you will makabel everything right then and there. It worked. Mashenkin over here, by the time it's working, that kinyan that you made is gone. So therefore, two reasons why it's dissimilar. Either one, because you could keep the sudar, but two, it works after a period of time when the kinyan is already finished. Back in the Gemara, only Rav Nachman, v'hamatana beis chayroin v'koni almanas lahaknosu v'loy kokoni. So Rav Nachman, 1 second, you acquired the land for what reason? To be makna rishus to the father, right? You acquired the land and the suda to be makna to the father. So the chayra, you see, it's a kinyan that works. The only reason it doesn't work is why. Is because Saifai is Hachiach al Chilasai that he didn't want to really give it. In other words, it doesn't work as the Nedarim Dikadin, but as the Choshe Mishpat Dikadin, it would work. Guys, you hear? The kinyan would work. The only reason it doesn't work is because what? It's a workaround that the Neder doesn't work. But the Choshe Mishpat, the kinyan did work. The reason why we don't let it go through is because since the end shows that what? In the beginning, right? The whole reason you did it, so therefore, it's still the nether is still in vogue. Masha Enkein, the kinyan itself would work. So that's so they asked. So it didn't work. So he said, "Amalei Rav Nachman, but matnas beischarim the kani amas lachnas like a kani." So zimin amalei mishum the sudaslei muchachas alav. The first one he said, you know why it didn't work? Not because the chayshim mishpah didn't work. It didn't work. Why? Because of the nedarim part. This fancy language for telling you it didn't work because of the nedarim part. The zimin amalei Rebbe Lazar, it's Rebbe Lazar. Dama afilu vita asa b'mudahana. Guys, vita. Are you allowed to walk on somebody's property? Absolutely, right? Like, chayshim mishpat, you're allowed to work on somebody's property. The hilchas nedarim we're machma. Hilchas nedarim that we said vita is also. We began the perik. You can't go ahead and walk on this property. Mudamin and Michael, you could. And we said, who is it according to? That's according to Rabbi Eliezer, that I feel a vita, things that people normally are mavater on, they're not. So in other words, it's the same teretz, two different ways, right? One, the neder is machiach, that it's still the neder is in vogue, because, right? But in Achanami, the kinyan work. Or other times he said that's according, it's an Nedarim Dikadin, not a Chayshim Mishpat Dikadin. Nedarim, the reason why it doesn't work is because we're so machmir, because it goes according to Rabbi Eliezer, but normally Chayshim Mishpat works. So I said my din of Chayshim Mishpat. This din of the guy stealing has nothing to do with a neder, right? He was mudad afterwards, right? He was mudad afterwards. So therefore, he told him, listen, okay, that's basically the Gemara. Says let's finish up. So Tanan, Omru Hacham Chamim. Matana matana she'ena she'emekdisha hemukudeshes ena matana. Now it says kol matana, any matana that if it's not, if the magdish kol asui may lav asui hamilsa, that this milsa guys of what? It's not a matana. The kinyan is not a kinyan because he can't keep it. In other words, we're asking on Rav Nachman. The shadya b'kipi, the case of what, where what, or be gurs on the side, the shadya the b'kfei la suye lishna basur the shmaita the rava. We had in the first, on the Amid Aleph guys, we had the lashon, whether you use the lashon of a tanai, of loi, or whether you use the lashon of eina lefanecha, it's not in front of you. Either way, it would be asa. That's what it comes to include, that last lashon of rava. That if you, even if you say the lashon of it's only in front of you, it is in front of you, right? That my father should eat. That in that case also it would still be asa for the father to come. That's what it comes to include. But in a chinami, matana, a question mishpat dikadin, not a nedarim dikadin, almanas would in fact work.
But my son Pesach, right?